Hi, my name is Dr. John Douillard, and I want to talk to you today about colonics. You know, I get this question all the time, whether or not I should do a colonic. Are they good for you? Are they bad for you? What's the Ayurvedic perspective of colonics? A colonic is a gentle irrigation with water, warm water, into the large intestine to flush out any accumulated debris in the intestinal tract. Now, whether or not they're good for you probably depends on who you ask. There are thousands upon thousands of anecdotal stories on the web. People have had great experiences with colonics. If you look for research on colonics, it's slim. I did as much research as I could trying to find some studies that were done. There seem to be some studies underway, but there doesn't seem to be a large amount of research citing the real benefit of colonics. Now, from the Ayurvedic perspective, there seems to be some benefit by stimulating the intestinal tract. There's an effect called the enema effect. So when you put water into the intestinal tract and kind of irrigate out any accumulated waste, you stimulate the intestinal mucosa. That stimulates a kind of a cleaning out of the intestinal tract. It stimulates the lymphatic system, which lines the intestinal tract. And when the lymph system begins to move and become stimulated, all of a sudden the drains aren't clogged anymore. The body's cells are moving and the waste is moving out. And you feel better. People find that their sinuses are more free, their joints are more free, they feel more energy, more vitality. The list of benefits that people report from colonics are really quite amazing. Now, so there seems to be this understanding of why colonics work. Again, there is lack of research to really prove it, but there are colonic centers throughout America. There are organizations that certify colonic therapies. There are schools for colonic therapists. I mean, it's quite a big industry, and it definitely seems to be providing benefit for people. However, here is the risk that I see with colonics. When you irrigate the intestinal tract, you run the risk of washing out all the good bacteria. The trillions of bugs and microbes that line the intestinal tract that support and create the neurotransmitters that help you stabilize blood sugar, that support your bone density, that support just about every aspect of your health are really done by the microbes in your intestinal tract. It is incredibly difficult to propagate, to populate new good bacteria in the intestinal tract. Westerners, because of a scrubbed environment, sterile everything, antibacterial this and that, we have cleaned our intestinal tract to the point where there are much less diversity, many less strains of good bacteria in our intestinal tract than, let's say, folks in Europe who don't scrub everything. Everything isn't so sterile there. And as a result, we pay a price, perhaps, pay a price with regard to chronic issues. This is definitely the area of really great and brand new research. How much we know that these bugs are doing so much of the work. All the heavy lifting is done in terms of health by these bugs. We haven't quite mapped out, the researchers haven't quite mapped out how all that works, but we definitely know that they're critically important. They make up 90% of the cells in your body, and the human ones are only 10%. So to go in there and irrigate out the bugs, you're definitely creating an effect where you have to sort of start over. And many colonics will use, probiotic implants and prebiotic implants, and they're less than successful, I would say. Very few of them actually seat and adhere to the gut wall. Very few microbes have actually been studied to actually adhere to the gut wall. So when you take out the environment with just water, you run the risk of stripping away the good bacteria. I met, a long time ago, I was able to lecture next to Bernard Jensen on a panel discussion, who was the man who created the colonic. He started the bentonite clay colon cleanses. He's written over 50 books. He was from Escondido, California, a phenomenally brilliant man. He started the whole cleansing thing. I started doing those cleanses when I was 18 years old. Followed him for many, many years. I always ask the question whether or not the cleanses that I did actually made me digest better or worse. I mean, I always felt like I needed to cleanse again shortly after one of those cleanses, and I felt like I was one of those cleansing casualties, and sort of that propelled me into understanding more and more about digestion. So I met him, now this is fast forward, this is probably 10 years ago, so many years had gone by, And I met him and I noticed his belly was sticking way out to here, very bloated and very distended. And he was doing colonics and Colima enemas for many, many years. And I wondered if he had stripped away the good bacteria and left his intestinal tract bloated. His assistant told me sort of privately that he was taking about 17 digestive enzymes before every meal because he lost his ability to digest. Now, I tell you this story not to knock him. I think he's absolutely one of the most brilliant natural health practitioners, doctors, leaders of our field. But I think we all learn along the way. And one of the things that I realized was I was, had just finishing my Ayurvedic training, and what we do in Ayurvedic medicine, we do detoxes. We actually use oil enemas into the intestinal tract with herbs. And the intestinal tract likes oil. It turns out that the bugs in your intestinal tract eat the oil. The bugs that lie in your skin, on the outside of your skin, eat the oil. So that's one of their nourishers. And when they eat these oils, they break the oils down into fatty acids, little free fatty acids that have incredible health benefits. And the herbs that are infused support the flora, they support the growth, they support the health of that environment. So putting an oil enema into the intestinal tract, well, that just makes a heck of a lot of sense from the point of view of the 90%, which are the bugs. We're only 10% the human cells, right? So why not do something that supports the bugs? So I get a little nervous when we start sort of irrigating and hosing down the intestinal tract on a regular basis. Now, that said, there can be many instances where people are really congested and really have issues, and they got to get in there and clean things out. But I would highly suggest that you follow that up with really repopulating, healing the intestinal wall, restoring the balance in the environment where the bugs can proliferate in the natural way they were designed. And that's why, in fact, why we have a lot of the cleanses that we do. So many of the cleanses are all about, not just cleaning, detoxifying the body, but supporting digestive strength, supporting lymphatic flow, supporting the health of the microbes in the intestinal tract. And once you have that digestive process, all the bugs supported, then you can detoxify the body because you're detoxifying it into a system that can detoxify because the bugs, the microbes in your digestive process is so much about being able to detoxify. Right? So it makes sense to, before you just go clean the body out, that you understand that you have to leave the body digesting and detoxifying way better than when you started. And that's my only concern about colonics is people tend to get addicted to them. People get addicted to enemas. Coffee enemas can be great to help flush bile in certain conditions. But when you start using these things and become dependent on these things, which is really the problem with just about anything, if you become dependent on anything, coffee, tea, wine, anything, then dark chocolate, candy, we start to realize that I have become dependent on that, and it's not in my best interest to go down that road. So the risks when you take out the bacteria, it's challenging to repopulate them, and it starts to create a dependency on, boy, I would feel so much better if I got another enema or I got another colonic. And that's my only risk. I think done wisely, done carefully, with a practitioner who knows how to restore the function of the bacteria. And it doesn't mean just take probiotics. It's a whole process of starting with the upper digestion, your liver, your gallbladder, your pancreatic flow, the intestinal villi, the lymph on the outside. All that has to be coordinated to really bring the balance back. It is challenging to grow good bugs in your gut, very challenging. And that's why we have such limited diversity of strains of good bacteria in our digestion, and perhaps potentially the reason why we see many chronic issues that are, rampant in our culture today. So please read the article to get more info about this perspective on colonics. Thank you for listening. I'm Dr. John Douillard.